I use a lot of this burnt sienna also, so the warm with the cool mixed in together. Just to kind of get denser, dark areas to start with. But then I do a lot of, I guess it would be wet into wet, where I do clear water and that sort of stuff, where I just hit it and let it go. That combined with a lot of tilting. And that sort of business. And kind of let it go.
And do you always work on like the 300-pound paper?
Yes. Yeah, that's the other thing. I use 300-pound cold press for the most part. Now with the big ones, that's 140-pound. It comes on a roll. You can't get 300-pound that big. I wish we could, because that would be fantastic. But I use so much water that I get a lot of warpage. And that's one of the reasons that I, most of the stuff is what's called a float mount. You see how they are sort of suspended in there? I just like that look because my stuff is so undefined that I don't necessarily like to lock it behind a mat. Now with a few of them I've done that just because, you know, it's a cost reason or, you know, or whatever. But I prefer the float mount because it works with the style, whatever. But also my stuff is warped. So if you stick it behind a map, it's like, you know, you got the mountains and stuff going on.
What do you put to keep it, you know, to float it?
Well, they're hinged at the top. And actually I have a great frame shop that I use that they sort of anchor them down at the bottom a little bit too. Some of them are at the top and they have like maybe just one little tack, but it's basically linen tape hinges that attach it behind the top. And so it hangs and there's maybe just something to keep it from swinging at the bottom, but that way it sort of hovers, you know, it's kind of, and it's kind of like a shadow box effect, I think is what they call it.
It gives it depth.
Yes, and that was something that Rob did years ago, and I always just thought it was, you know, the best way to display watercolors, I think. But what I'll do also is, and I'll come back, you know, because we've got to do the glow, and I will throw in the yellow. Let's do that. To get it to add some more of the stuff. But it's really, as I say, all about this kind of wet edge business. And just, I will start with an idea of what I want the piece to be, but after that it's anything goes. Because it's all about, once you take it from the idea to the start of this, then this becomes my world. It's like, let's react to what's happening in here, and that could be who knows what. So if a certain sort of a shape forms, you know, that I think is going to be effective, I will just kind of go with it. And it really just becomes about making a composition out of what I've started here. And I'm saying I'm enjoying doing this because I haven't done this in a while, because I spent months painting silk. And I'll talk about that in the February event. It's similar but different. So,
do you use the same paints on silk?
No, it's silk dye. It's liquid dye.
But the capillary effect is a whole lot different than it is on this.
It's different. But it's surprisingly similar in some ways, but it took me a while to get my sort of sea legs with that, I guess you could say, because what's very different about the silk is the absorption rate. See, what happens with this is